All right, so we are live. It's Wednesday, November 13th. I can't believe it's already November 13th. Thanksgiving is coming up. The election already happened. Lots of stuff going on, lots of speculation about how the world's going to turn. I say energy, all of the above, transportation, all of the above. In transportation, we're lucky today that we have a great guest, and we'll talk with him in a minute. But before we get started here, let's have our own John Sibley Butler play some music.
Everybody's gone away. Believe they say they're going to LA. There's not a soul around. Everybody's leaving town. Some caught a freight, some caught a plane. Find the sunshine, leave the rain. They say this town will waste your time. Yes, that's right, it's wasting mine. Some gotta win, some gotta lose. Good time, Charlie's got the blues.
All right, Johnny.
How you doing today?
So I've been in Dubai and Mumbai. I'm back. The election happened. Unexpected result for many. Um, uh, Interesting times. I see a lot of stuff going on with the projects, the funding, energy. The grid seems to be doing okay. Weather is cooling off a little bit. Anything going on your neck of the woods? Anything you want to share?
Yes, it is. While you were gone, the Longhorns beat Florida, but my alma mater got their hand handed to them by Alabama. I mean, my LSU Tigers that I love got beat. So, and then there's the election was there, and of course, everybody now is jockeying about policy. And as Lou Ellen said in his in his great editorial, America has already been great. So we know that America is great. But let me tell you what I think is happening. I think there is some uncertainty around the different kind of policies. Are we gonna really dump clean energy now? Will fossil fuels come back into play? Where drilling takes place much more robust in the state of Louisiana and the state of Texas. Will the education department still be here? What's going to happen now with Ukraine? What's going to happen now with Israel and the Middle East? What's going to happen with immigration? So there are some uncertainties, and being from Texas, I don't think it's immigration. I think it's illegal immigration. I don't think there'll be any quote roundups where people are legal. And from the point of view of what we talk about, there's some uncertainty because remember that there are a lot of startups that work with DoD. There are a lot of startups that work with America. So Donald Trump had a sweeping. He put together a coalition like I've never seen before. Even the unions in Detroit voted for him. 53% of white women voted for him. 27% of black men voted for him, and I think that's underestimated, by the way. And then 70% of Mexicans voted for him, which they call Hispanics, and I would prefer the term Mexicans. And I just think that it's some uncertainty. But what is not uncertain is that America will continue to be good, and Americans need to just move forward, put the election behind us, and do that. On the startup side, again, it is really booming. I don't know if everything is good with the grid. I think that in Texas, that I approached the state of Texas, the governor's office, about having so many companies coming here and what are we going to do with energy in the future. Again, Lou Ellen touched on this in an editorial that everybody must go read. So I think that we're to the point now
Texas,
where it's two things about the grid. Do we have enough energy? And what's going to happen to all of the EVs coming out of China? We know that the EVs coming out of China is doing fabulous. They're much cheaper. They're great cars. And right now, the production in China is much greater. Of automobiles is much greater than anywhere else in the world, and that is there. So we have a lot of issues to go forward with, and I think that the political stuff would take care of itself. We do not have a dictatorship. I think that Donald Trump is going to do just fine when he gets the right people around him, and I think that we need to go forward.
All right, Llewellyn.
Well, it's obviously it's a seminal time, and seminal, as you know, means something after which nothing will be the same again. And the election of Trump, which has been quite a rout really for the Democrats, the election of Trump is going to signal major changes in our position in relation to the world, in some domestic policies. I fear that a lot of what has been offered is fixing something that isn't broken. For example, we are the largest oil producer in the world. We're the second largest gas producer in the world. That we need more violently to increase the amount of drilling doesn't seem to be well argued to me. Our challenge going forward is to maintain both the relationships that have got us to this point in time, the solid relationship with Europe, Canada, basically the members of NATO, and those sympathetic to the goals and aims of NATO, and to what it has achieved. I think that's very important. I think trading relationships are vital, and crude tariffs could be very damaging to those relationships. We could see the emergence of new blocks of interest in the world if they feel that America has withdrawn from the globe. You can be, excuse me, you can be prosperous behind the protection screen, but eventually it'll catch up with you. I was just on the phone before we went on the air with an investment banker in New York, and we're talking about India and why India has been such a poor economic performer to this point in time. Really, since the Brits left in 1947 until the Modi government came in, it suffered from various protection systems that made it less competitive and gave it less internal dynamism. And that's a very serious situation. If we're going to do that to ourselves, turn ourselves back into a kind of protected India-like situation, we will lose our edge in technology and in global competition. So there's a lot at stake here, which is really, do we need to do all the things the incoming administration has told us we need to do? I think if you tell people they're unhappy, they may conclude they're unhappy, but doesn't mean you can make them happy. America is, at the moment, the most prosperous country on earth. We have really quite low inflation after a period of savage inflation. And in fact, we're, America the Great and Beautiful is what we have today. Now, if we start fixing it, we might not have it tomorrow. On the other hand, we may be able to continue for a while. I think that our international station is very important and has to be comprehended. If we don't do that, we will be in danger of losing markets, losing respect, and watching former allies form new coalitions and new blocs, which will not be advantageous to us. America will, in short, stop being the global leader if we are not careful.
Anyway, I would say to that the top 5 economies in the world are the US, China, Germany, Japan, and India in that order. India has come a long ways. I was just there. Their grid is going from 500 gigawatts to 2,000 gigawatts. They're building a semiconductor industry. They're building manufacturing. They're trying to compete with China. They're part of the BRIC, but really that's more of a mirage than anything else.
Well, what I see
May I
happened in
finish?
India
May I
was
finish? May I finish? May I finish?
sorry.
May I finish? And so India and China have an incredible competitive thing going on. There's an incredible push inside India to do other things and not rely on China. And so they're building a whole manufacturing thing. So a lot of stuff going on there. CMG is doing several projects in India. And, you know, again, everything is very fluid right now. The world is shifting right and left. So I was just going to try to set up our guest, but go ahead, Llewellyn.
No, it's all right. All I wanted to say was India held itself back with protectionism. We must be careful we don't change our global situation with protectionism. It has never worked very well for the long term, from essentially 1947 until really around 2000. India practiced protectionism. When I was last in India, you could buy a brand new car that was 30 years old. It could either be a Lada I beg your pardon, an Italian car, or it could be a Morris Oxford from England, but it was 30 years old when it was brand new, because there was no need for anybody making cars in India to put in any new technology. That was the product of protectionism, and it did not serve India well. I spent a lot of time with the former editor of the Times of India, and we've discussed this exhaustively, and I have had a long association with India and Indian culture. And I've always said, when will India awake? It's a sleeping giant. It is now awakening. You're quite right.
So anyway, they have mass transit, you know, and obviously they have vehicles and gazillion vehicles and maybe new rules for driving and all that. It's was quite fascinating to be there again. So as we look at transportation being one of the cornerstones of innovation in the future, we do have ourselves quite a bit of challenges in transportation for all kinds of reasons. Primarily, I would say, since I got here in 2000, we have been growing like crazy. We are a friendly state for business. We have been somewhat discovered globally because of our South by Southwest and ACL and Formula One, and we got a lot of international investments coming in. I'm actually happy to report that I flew from Amsterdam straight to Austin. And Austin now has direct flights to I don't know how many countries in the world. We are definitely in the global stage now as a city, as a capital. And what's going on in Central Texas is just incredible growth. So with that said, I wanted to introduce our guest, and we're going to talk transportation. Nirav Ved is the Data and Operations Manager for the Capital Area Metropolitan Planning Organization, known as CAMPO. That's CAMPO. He'll be with us for the hour. And Nirav is responsible for collecting, managing, and analyzing large transportation-related data sets in support of CAMPO's planning efforts. He also manages the Regional Safety Program, the Regional Incident Management Program, and the Regional Transportation Demand Management Program. Prior to his position, he serves as Special Assistant to the Executive Director of CAMPO. And prior to his work at CAMPO, Nirav spent 9 years in the Department of Defense, serving in various capacities. He has a bachelor degree in government for the University of Texas at Dallas, and a master's degree in public affairs and community and regional planning from the University of Texas at Austin. He's a Longhorn, Johnny.
I knew that he was a Longhorn. Proud of him. Proud of the team that I built.
Nirav, welcome to the program.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Just want to say I cannot comment at all, or have no ability to offer any opinions on the topics I've discussed before. I am not an expert on anything like that. So,
Absolutely, absolutely.
You know, this is a free country. You can say anything you want to say.
I appreciate that. I can say anything, but maybe I shouldn't.
Yeah. So Nirav, CAMPO oversees planning for Bastrop, Burnett, Caldwell, Hayes, Travis, and Williamson counties. I would imagine also the CAMPO has a relationship with other similar organizations across the state. Tell us a little bit about the journey that is going on at CAMPO. I would imagine that many people would want planning to go the way they think it should go. And you are probably telling them every day, we got to listen to the data. Because now the jobs and where people buy houses know where people want them to go. They go wherever they want to go. What are your thoughts on that, and how hard or how easy is the planning process at CAMPO? Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity. So the first thing I want to mention is that our mission is to provide a long-range transportation planning for those 6 counties, but not all of the planning that they do. We do not have land use control, for instance. What we do, the 2 major things that we do is the regional transportation plan, which we're federally required to do every 5 years. And one of the components of that is to do a 20 or 25-year outlook on things like population and job growth, where the population is expected to grow, where the job growth is expected to go. And just for your viewers, if you want a basic 30-second description of what CAMPO does, the way I put it is that every metropolitan area in the United States that has at least 50,000, a population of 50,000, is federally required to have an MPO. So we are the MPO for the 6 counties: Bastrop, Burnett, Caldwell, Hayes, Travis, and Williamson. We, in addition to doing the long-range transportation plan, which dictates where we expect growth to occur over the next 20 or 25 years, we are also responsible for allocating federal transportation funding to our member agencies, whether they be cities, counties, or the state. And the body that does that is our Transportation Policy Board. That is a 22-member board, 20 of whom are elected officials from all over the region. And then there's 2 non-elected officials. I could give you the agencies if you want, and the breakdown of who represents what. But we go through a competitive project selection process where agencies from the region apply for the funding, and then we distribute that funding based on various factors, such as how much they improve safety, how ready their projects are, how shovel ready their projects are for construction, and a number of other factors. So those are 2 main things that we do on a regular basis.
So before we get going, is it fair to say that because we do 5-year planning and 25-year planning, and we have been doing this for a long time, we are really, what's happening today is the consequence of the planning that's been done over the last 10, 20 years. Is that fair to say? Or are things in transportation that happen accidentally that nobody planned? Is that possible?
Do you have an example in mind?
Well, I'm just saying that it seems to me that because we have this ongoing process at all county and state level, that we are in a situation that we plan for it, right? We plan where we are.
Yes, in general, that counties and cities will look at the growth that's being provided, or is expected to go by the model that we provide, which is updated again every 5 years. The one caveat that we give, and it is a giant one, is that the model is not destiny. It is not something that is determined. You can change it. The basis of the model is that, it's a fairly simple process, even though it's very complex. But basically, we look at the baseline that we are right now, and we, do like a 25-year projection. But if cities were to do major revisions, such as increasing or decreasing density, that would change where the model predicts where populations would occur based on things like that.
Right.
So
Okay.
again,
But you know, it
yes,
sounds, let me ask it another way. It sounds like you need my help desperately. You sound like you need my 512 CMG consulting. I love data people because I'm a data person myself. I love it. Academic type, but let me ask you this. What is your theory? You know, data in and data out.
Mhm.
It's just garbage in, garbage out. So I think what my distinguished colleague is asking is, what is your theory of growth
My
around?
theory.
What is your independent, what is your dependent variable? What are you predicting? So really your dependent variable, I'm going to put it academic, is the movement of the city. And the independent variables are all the things that count. So when you sit around a table and think about it, just your theory would be what you expect to happen. So it's a theory that we're gonna combine with San Antonio. It's a theory that Temple and Austin will become one. It's a theory that we can go all the way to Columbus, right? Texas. So what's the theory that guides you, or your perception or your thoughts that guides you as you think about the model and changing the model?
So again, there is really no theory in this, and that we are bound by just the data that's in front of us, and have we what the I guess the overarching guideline that we follow is that we are going to be faithful to what is presented to us by our official partners. So when the state gives us our population data, that's what we go with. When the cities give us their land use data, that's where we're not, like, we can ask questions, we can have follow-up questions, but we're not going to put on our assumptions or our presumptions and say, this is actually what's happening. We can obviously follow up if we see something that doesn't make sense. And we do that. That's part of the process of working with your fellow agencies. But whether there's an overarching theory, and again, I'm not a modeler, so I don't want to go venture too far into the model, but I will say that there is no, we just basically follow what the data shows us. And then
But what I could do is I could take your data, and I know the chief demographic person up in Waco for the great state of Texas. I would love to take a look at your data, 512 CMG Consulting, and I'm so shy. I was looking for a job, or something to do, and create some models as to where the city
Sure. I mean, the data, I mean, the
might
model
go.
is, the
Because
model,
I think you have enough data right now to really predict where it will be
so
within.
the model is free for public use.
Yes.
All you gotta do is just sign a release and, we'll provide you the entire thing.
Okay, well that sounds good. Okay, so the other question is, as the data guru for Capital Metro,
Oh,
as we like,
wow. Let's
as
not do
the data
that.
guru
For
and a
Campo, for
Longhorn,
Campo, Campo.
and a Longhorn, I might add. So I know that you're perfect already since you're a Longhorn. Seriously, so how do you see our interaction with the data scientists from other cities around us? That is one of the questions that we always ask in Austin. And we do it like when I'm modeling my stuff of the growth of Austin. I know that Silicon Valley is 5 or 6 cities now, right? I know that Boston is 3 or 4 cities right now. I know that Washington D.C. is 2 or 3 cities or 4 cities right now. How do you interact with your modeling with people from the cities that's around Austin? Whether it's, well, you know what the cities are. How do you interact with them? Whether it's Pflugerville, Georgetown, and etc. How do you interact with them?
There's 3 different levels at the internet for what we do. So there's the local level, and when we're interacting with our local partners, those like you mentioned Pflugerville, Georgetown, they're obviously in our region, so we're in constant contact with staff from those agencies pretty much all the time.
Mm-hmm.
At the statewide level, there is a statewide association of Texas MPOs,
Mm-hmm.
which we are an active member of. And those meetings occur, I think, once a quarter. And on the national level, there is a national association of MPOs, and there's various technical committees and policy committees, which CAMPO staff members serve on. And there's also, I think, maybe 2 meetings a year that occur at the national level, and we are, of course, members of that. Sometimes we
Mhm.
present, but we also obviously sit in on presentations. And that is pretty much the level at which.
So one of the questions, of course, I did the modeling for the growth of Austin early on as we were going to a high tech. And we always looked at our competitors in terms of business enterprise.
Hmm.
So one of the things that we always said was that if the infrastructure is correct, then we can draw people to Central Texas, to Austin, whether it's Dallas, and that infrastructure, of course, the education institutions where people can draw from. The reason why Boston could do so well is they've got 200 schools in Boston that people love. You know, it's not just MIT and Harvard. You know, they got the Berkeley School and et cetera. And one of the things that we knew that every school would make a contribution, right? And we also know that the business climate would make a contribution. We knew that that companies like to cluster around each other, that wealth in these companies. So do you take advantage of any competitive data from Silicon Valley or from Boston on how they grew and the problems that they had? So I would tell my friends in Silicon Valley, we really have an issue now with affordable homes. And I would say, and they would say to me, well, Dr. Butler, we had that issue 15 years ago. Our problem now is where do we park all of these private jets? And then they would say to me, well, you know, affordable housing is an issue and you can't go against the laws of economics. You might build up affordable housing, but if somebody buys it, they can turn it into a condo worth $2 million. So do you do any comparative as you grow on how cities have grown and the problems that they had and that kind of stuff?
To a certain extent, yes. Because the only reason I say to a certain extent is because the remedies that are available to us are all differ by state,
Mm-hmm.
due to various state laws, the various state funding regulations about how transportation funding can be spent.
Mm-hmm.
And, those are realities. So, what worked for Boston and New York probably won't work here just due to various things. So, that's something that we have to keep in mind. Usually we look to, when it comes to, not competitors, but, like, I guess, sister agencies that we look at. San Antonio is a similar one to us. It's a very easy comparison to make. They're similar in size. They're in the same state, so they have to play by the same rules that we do. We also look at Las Vegas and Nashville. Again, that's just more for looking at growth patterns because they have similar tendencies as we do in terms of land use and mode shift and things like that. Probably the 3 or 4 ones that I wouldn't call them competitors because there's really no competition happening, but just if you ever need like a second look or just seeing how other people are doing business, that's where we would.
I agree. Okay, thank you. But I think competition comes from businesses. That is, we want to compete and bring the best businesses here.
Right.
And we bring the best businesses here because of the infrastructure, including highways. So for example, we had to really improve our air transportation as Austin grew.
I'm sorry, what?
Our air transportation.
Okay.
We had no direct flights to anywhere. We had to all go through Dallas. To go to heaven, you had to go through Dallas and change planes, right?
Yeah.
And now Andrea's just been around the world, and he told me that he had direct flights from Austin to wherever he wanted to go. So without that kind of improvement in infrastructure, nobody's moving here. Everybody's moving away. So what I'm saying is, I think that your task that you have in terms of the data management is just absolutely necessary for planning to make the infrastructure as well as it can be.
Yes, and
Thank you.
that we could agree on because
Yeah.
if we don't do our job well, then
Right.
our policymakers cannot make good decisions based on where they want the growth to go. So it's up to us to be very well aware of not just what the data says, but what its limitations are, and to communicate that effectively to our policymakers.
Right.
Llewellyn,
Yeah, very interesting. When you talk about data and transportation, in the end, you're talking about 2 separate things, moving goods and moving people.
Yes.
There's a lot of choice in how you move people, less choice in how you move goods. They move by rail and then they go by truck. And so far, we haven't seen anything that'll change that radically. But when it comes to moving people, that changes a lot. When we had public transportation means different things to different people. Airlines are public transportation, for example. But when we come to a city, we think of buses, subways, light rail, cars, scooters, and who knows, walking. How you plan a city favors one over the other. And to some extent, it's a social decision too. If you're in Britain, for example, it is laced with bus systems. Now they're all commercial, or nearly all commercial, except for the big cities, but you can go almost anywhere without difficulty by bus. It's quite extraordinary. We can't do that in the US.
Right.
Where I'm in Rhode Island, the bus comes by here every hour or so. Nobody's quite sure where it goes. And although I love buses, I've never found it of any use to me at all. Washington, D.C. is a bit better. The buses are more frequent. And that's an important thing with buses. They have to be fairly frequent. As my wife says, they have to have a conveyor belt effect, so that if you didn't get this one, you get that one, not sitting in the heat, excuse me, I'm sorry, the heat or the cold forever. Some things are not planned. Who would have thought the impact that scooters would have on urban transportation? But they've obviously had an impact. They've taken some cars off the road. They've taken people out of mass transportation. And then you have other events that were not planned. COVID had a very deleterious impact on ridership on the Washington subway system and the New York subway system. People stopped going to work. People got out of the habit of riding, and because they didn't want to expose themselves to the virus, they tended to favor driving. Then you have the arrival of Uber, which again is a change in public transportation. How does your data allow for these changes? And what happens when you get to very close to gridlock through density? In Vietnam, there's density of two-wheel vehicles. You can't get a car down most Vietnamese streets. When I was last in Saigon, I met a billionaire who made a lot of money selling us shrimp. And he had a Rolls Royce, but he really couldn't go anywhere in it because of the density of scooter population on the roads. So how does data play into these choices, and to what extent can you influence the public? You can't really direct the public to take a subway. You can't direct the public to get on a bus, or for that matter, to abandon a car. Does your planning look towards things like what the Brits call a community charge and congestion charge? They called it in New York, but they abandoned it. Are these things in the mix? Does the data tell you what to do about them?
So, you know, that you brought up an interesting point about data and counting people, because where we are right now is that we have fantastic data to count cars. We can, you know, to a reasonable estimate, look at how many cars went over a certain segment of road, however large that road is at a certain time of year. And then, you know, we could project out what's going to happen if we expand that road. There's so much data that you could really do amazing things with, you know, guessing, you know, trying to do analysis for cars. We do not have that same level of data for counting people. Right now, there are 36 bike ped counters in the city of Austin. And for a city that size, that is woefully inadequate. And what that leaves us with is that if you wanted to do something like encourage mode shift, which the city of Austin has as one of their goals, is to reach 50%, not only having 50% single occupied vehicle trips by 2050. But in order to do that, you have to know, basically, they don't know, and we don't know where people are walking, where people are biking, which side of the road that they're on. We honestly don't even have a very good sidewalk network in terms of a shapefile. So a map of our bike facilities, our sidewalk facilities. We don't know if they're in good shape, whether they're compliant with the American Disabilities Act. And, that's kind of what we've been trying to address for a number of years now. The city of Austin is on its way in their recent climate grant that they received from the Environmental Protection Agency. That includes budgeting to increase the number of counters they have. So it's going from 36 to 86, so they're going to have an extra 50 counters. We are also gathering data on where our sidewalk and bicycle network is. But again, that's very much a piecemeal effort because we have to go through all the cities. What we hope to do is combine, get that usage data and get that sidewalk data, see where our gaps are. And I'm bringing all this up is because the way our process currently works for divvying out or distributing transportation funding, one of the key metrics for choosing which projects get funded and which ones don't is a cost benefit analysis. Your safety and usage versus the amount of cost it takes to create that facility. When it comes to cars, again, very easy. For lanes, we have so much data that tells us if you do X treatment on this road for this many miles, you can expect to get this much benefit, for in terms of safety or whatnot. We simply do not have that amount of that capability for something like if you want to build a new sidewalk or if you want to build a new bicycle lane or bike path. So by gathering this data, we hope to be able to one day be able to do that and actually, affect that shift. I mean, if you can build all the sidewalks you want, but if you're just building them in places where just because they're cheap, but nobody's actually using them, then they're not going to get used.
Thank you.
Yeah, let me comment on that. Llewellyn, we've had a fight here in Austin between the city, automobiles, bicycles, scooters, messing up the highways. So I can go out on my way to play golf on Loop 360 and I got bicycles that should be somewhere else riding. I could go down a great street in Austin that used to be 4 lanes. It's now got bicycle lanes everywhere. So Llewellyn, our city council tried to get us out of our cars by changing the highways to make them bicycle friendly. Would you say that those comments that I made are correct, sir? Bicycle friendly. Would you say that I'm right?
Well, bicycles tend, in my experience, to have attracted a certain elite with a certain sense of moral superiority. I'm of an age where riding a bicycle is not, in fact, a practical choice unless it had 4 wheels, which case it wouldn't really be a bicycle. There's a lot of people contesting, and this is why I think what the data is very important. To some extent, you must channel what people do, otherwise you end up with a congestion thing that is unsolvable. If you're going to put in bike lanes, you better be sure there are enough bicyclists, although they may end up being of much more interest to scooter operators than to cyclists. What do you think, Nirav? You're the expert.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
If you put in a bike lane, that's a political decision. You don't really know what the usage will be when you lay it down. Will it be bicycles? Will it be scooters? And are electrified bicycles bicycles? Most bicycles now, new ones, are electric. They look mighty like mopeds to me, but they're classified as bicycles. How do you make these decisions, and how do you do this channeling? Do you base it on data, or do you just not know? I mean, a lot of cities, obviously no city knew that scooters would be as prevalent and used as greatly as they are, or that electrified bicycles would become as popular and pervasive as they are. This is technology interfering with planning.
Yeah, so when we have a very extensive scoring process when it comes to our how we should select which projects get funding. We do our best to keep the politics out of it because, you know, we have 6 counties, about 60 member cities, and a 22-member board. It's obviously not going to satisfy everybody. And there are several factors. It's all on our website. In fact, we actually have a project call ongoing right now, which will end on which the application period is December 20th. And for active transportation, there are several factors involved. Just off the top of my head, the first one is that, you know, does the facility, your bike lane or your sidewalk, connect a gap? So was there a previous gap that you're trying to connect with this proposed project? Was it in a previous plan? So a city plan, a state plan, something like that, just to show that this is something that has been considered before. Has it gone through a public involvement process? You know, is there local funding available to meet the 20% match that's required for you know, federal funding? And there's is it in a underserved area? Things like that. These are and they all have different weights that go into it. And you know, like I said before, if we had data that showed that, hey, if we built this type of bike lane and this type of this part of town or this part of the region, then you can expect to see an X% increase in usage. That would be very useful, but we just don't simply have the data to be able to make that type of calculation.
Thank you. It's very interesting. Thank you.
So Nirav, I'm curious about some of the things that you guys do. Maybe you can elaborate a little bit more. You have a transportation improvement program. You have a unified planning work program. You do your annual performance and expenditure report. What does it take to put all this stuff together? I mean, give us a sense of how many gigabytes, petabytes of data are we talking about? What's the size of your team? How many people do this work?
We have a staff of 15 for a region of about 2 million. That's not normal.
Is that enough people or not enough?
Well, we always are looking to hire more, but at the moment, I think we would like to grow by at least another 3 people, ideally. So I think that's where we are at the moment. In terms of data size, I have no idea. But you know, the work that you just mentioned, the UPWP, the APER, these are fairly routine items that are federally required. So they can pretty much be done on a year-over-year basis with, I don't want to say minimal effort, but it's not a giant lift, essentially. But it does take everybody acting together to make sure that, you know, we present the data to the person who finally uploads it to the website before we present it, after we present it to the board.
So if I again, I'm trying to get a sense for the amount of work here. If I were to print out the annual performance and expenditure report, how many pages is that report? 10 pages? 1,000 pages?
You know what? I have no idea because it's not one of the things that the APER is not one of the things that is like something that we honestly look at that often. I'm actually surprised that you know about it. But yeah, I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
Got it.
Yeah. Well, let me ask this question. As in terms of what you see, we've talked about for the next 5 years, even maybe the next 10 years. So if you were giving a keynote speech to Digital 360, how do you see the future of transportation in Austin and Central Texas? What would you say?
You know, we're actually talking about the future very much so, because we have a number of initiatives going on. And we are working in close partnership with the Texas Department of Transportation and the city of Austin. So, you know, I would say that if we pulled off everything that we wanted to do, then in the future, you would be able to essentially travel with as complete information as possible. Let me give you an example. Right now, if you are driving from within our region from one city to the next, what hardly anybody knows is that the traffic signals that you see are actually owned, even though they look the exact same, they're actually owned by different agencies. So when you reach the border of a city, the control of the signals has changed and you had no idea, which normally it works fine. But if there was an accident or if there's unexpected growth or something, and one city changes its signal pattern, the staff at these agencies, they're so understaffed, they have so many demands on their time that calling their neighboring city to let them know, hey, we changed the signal time is not something that gets done right away. And so you as the driver who have no idea about any of this, you're just driving on your regular day, it's normal, and then all of a sudden, boom, you're stopped at this one signal light and you have no idea why. So one of the things that we're trying to do is create a digital platform, which we're calling the Central Texas Transportation Management System, to essentially automate that coordination that needs to occur. And it would collect the data from the traffic signals and have a filtering mechanism where the incoming agency can then, the affected agency can say, oh, okay, this type of change was made. We should consider whether or not to make our own changes to ensure a steady stream of travel on our roads in between cities. So that's one of the things that we're working on. The other thing that we're looking at is what's called the Construction Partnership Program. As those of you who live around here know that I-35 is about to undergo major construction. And we are working very closely with TxDOT and the city of Austin to create a messaging system for the traveling public for them to know not only, so what we're calling it the why. The traveling public will soon be able to, anybody can open up Google Maps and see that there's traffic happening, but it doesn't really tell you what the traffic is there for and how long it will last. What the point of what we're working with with TxDOT and the city of Austin is to do is to provide that why. You can get access from your app to the digital message signs, the traffic cameras, and the incidents that are available. And those incidents, unlike what you see on Google Maps, will not only tell you what the incident is, but it'll tell you which lanes are affected. And this is the type of information that simply hasn't been available before. And ideally, in this ideal world, the traveling public will be able to not just move freely from city to city within our region, but they will know if anything has happened. They are empowered to make the decisions about whether they want to stay early, leave later, or not make the trip at all, or take another route.
Yeah, I think that's good stuff. What we do with 512 CMG is we make all those lights. We have a business model for all those lights. So, for example, we could take the lighting that you have now and make a revenue stream off of the lights themselves. And I think you hit right on what we call the importance of small cities. And you're right, planning. And it's interesting for me. When I was in graduate school, we had courses on technology and society. And that same kind of problem was presented for the maintenance of the standardization of red lights or the standardization of stop signs. As a young man, you don't know that before I was born, all stop signs were in different places. Some might have been red, some might have been blue. Some red lights might have been set up, it was just a mess. And I see that. So do you have any interest at all in the smart cities? What we call smart cities. Have y'all discussed that? That is the relationship between the infrastructure having sensors on them and getting the data to you and making those things smart.
Yes, that is one of the components of what we would like to do with the Central Texas Transportation Management System is that the cities have so much data that honestly some of it's not even being used in terms of like the assets that they have and how they interact with each other. And we're hoping that we can, gather that and pull it into, a single platform and be able to, I mean, we're just talking about asset management, but there's other applications we haven't even thought of yet, just to be having all this information in one platform and the applications of it, we just know, the only limitations is imagination. So
Okay.
yeah, that's definitely something that we talk about and are working towards.
So as you know, as you know better than me, the roads have to be smart. quote unquote, with sensors. We know where everything is.
Yep.
We know the EMS would know with the probability if there's an accident,
Mhm.
they'll be online. And it's kind of like what we do for things like South by Southwest, when you just do them because you expect things to happen. But if we have the data, you can do it in real time, and as it happens, then they can be called for their services. Yeah, I think it's very exciting to look at the data and be able to make plans for the city and for the people in Central Texas as they move around the area.
And can I add on to that, like one of the things that we're looking at is, when you talk about data and you talk about smart cities, that we got to get the, I guess for a lack of a better word, the dumb stuff correct first. Is the first thing that we have to do, and that we're working with TxDOT on, is just getting an inventory of where all of our fiber capabilities are, so we can actually get that data transmitted at speed that's at the lag that's necessary, and that's one of the very first things we're doing. We know we have it, but we're not quite sure exactly. There's not I would say, a official inventory of where it is and who owns it and what its capabilities are, and then what the gaps are. So this is an effort that we very much want to get underway before we start, really jumping into the smart city initiative.
So how important? I always like to say that the C-suite in corporate America really have little information on AI, data movement, the importance of data. If you look around the country, do you think that the boards, not just your board, but the people who run what you do, are really up on the idea of smart cities and the importance of smart cities for planning and that kind of things? Because as 512 CMG has tried to do this, one of the things that I have noticed is that people just don't understand the smart city. They just don't understand the importance of data. There's nothing wrong with that. They just don't understand it. It's a new time.
I think so. Our board, again, we're not going to do anything that our board wouldn't approve of. So, and I think in terms of understanding, maybe they're not quite as familiar with whatever term is du jour at the moment, but for them, their task is to make sure that things basically work. And how that works is, they gave us the direction of just, be competent and just be good at your job. And that's what we're supposed to do. And we're also supposed to communicate. If they don't understand, we're supposed to clarify. If they want to know more, we're supposed to provide that information. And they rely on us to know what it is that we're talking about. So I don't want to imagine or speak on what they're thinking, but we do act under their direction.
Sure.
Oh yeah.
Llewellyn, any final thoughts?
10 years from now, what will be the predominant public transportation in Central Texas? Will it be buses? Will it be some version of Uber? Will it be light rail? Will it be more cars?
Well, let's see. I think we're at 76 or 77% travel by single occupied vehicles. So unless there's a major change or acceleration in trends, it'll probably still be that, but I wouldn't be surprised if the percentage is lower than what it is now, but I can't say how much.
Have you looked at going underground, either with Mr. Trump, Mr. Musk's boring concept, or with an old-fashioned subway?
So a subway was discussed there was supposed to be about a mile or two of an underground tunnel of the transit expansion that has been under ongoing discussion in the city of Austin. And I believe those plans were shelved for being too expensive. It's very expensive to tunnel. And I know that for I-35, I-35 will not be, it's not going to be quite a tunnel, but I think parts of it, there will be, it will be dipped below grade.
Let me say this, Llewellyn. We looked at that 40 years ago, and we have a lot of caves underneath the hill country. There are caves everywhere. There's water dripping everywhere. And it is a city of caves that's beneath us. And so it would be, so Austin is really, it used to be a very, very active fault. So, the Balcones fault, and it is so hilly here. and you could tell that earthquakes were here, millions of years ago. But if you look at what was done for the transportation, because I was in the meeting, was that, hey, there are a lot of caves under here. So could we go under? Yes, we can, but there are caves everywhere and there are hills everywhere. So it's a little different. Yeah.
Well, I certainly, remain fascinated with the possibilities as I look at all the things that you do. I've been studying your regional planning report, and I'm curious to see how, all this, decisions will evolve over time. It strikes me that the whole thing about delivery from Uber Eats to DoorDash to Amazon it's creating an interesting new challenge of fleets and fleets of things, vehicles moving and delivering, and it's kind of changing the dynamics of roads and everything, traffic patterns, and I wonder how AI is going to help us. Any final thoughts on what's in front of you, Nirav, for the next 6 months? What are you working on, or tell us anything that you're trying to tackle around how to leverage big data and AI, or anything at all?
So I mean, just speaking for the MPO, for the next 6 months, we are working on the draft of our 2050 regional transportation plan update. So, it's time for the 5-year plan, the 20-year plan to get this 5-year update. Like I mentioned, we have a project call that's ongoing, and much of next year will, I'm sure, be spent on receiving the applications, scoring them, and getting our board, getting the approval of our board to see if they agree with staff's recommendations. And I mentioned the Central Texas Traffic Management System that we're also working on, as well as the Construction Partnership Program. And so those are, I would say, the biggest things that we work on at the moment.
Okay. Johnny, any final thoughts?
No, I think it's good stuff. I like data, so I think I would love to get my hand on that data set and do some analysis.
Yeah, sure. Just I'll shoot me an email, and I'll send you the name of our modeler, and he can send you the release form.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Excellent. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Johnny, take us away.
Thank you very much, Nirav. Very interesting. I appreciate
Peace
the
of mind. Where's the good times that we should be sharing? As this way, only memories remain. I thought our dreams would be enough for a while. All the plans that we made. Hey, we had love. That was all that we had. And now that isn't the same.
All right. Thank you, Johnny.
Okay.
Nirav, we'll stay in touch.
All right, Rob. Good to have
Thanks
you.
for
Take care
everything
now.
you do.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
Bye-bye.